Governments love to tell you they are protecting the economy. But history shows us something very different. The greatest fortunes were built by quietly taking from the public. This was not an open robbery. It wasn't a law passed overnight. It was a financial game repeated for centuries, and most people never even realized it was being played. When you look closely at history, an uncomfortable truth appears. Governments have always used hidden financial tactics to strengthen their own power while slowly draining the wealth of ordinary people. And the most disturbing part is this. None of these tactics are new. The names change, the tools become more complex. But the goal always stays the same. Move wealth upward and keep the majority dependent on the system. Let's start with the oldest and simplest trick of all. Inflation. When a government spends more than it can collect in taxes, it has two choices. It can admit the truth and raise taxes openly, which is politically dangerous, or it can take the quieter path and reduce the value of money itself. The cash in your pocket stays the same, but what that money can buy, quietly, shrinks. Ancient Rome mastered this tactic. In the 3rd century AD, rising military expenses put enormous pressure on the empire. The solution was simple: reduce the silver content of the denarius. What was once a nearly pure silver coin slowly became mostly copper, coated with a thin layer of silver on top. The empire pretended nothing had changed, but the people holding those coins paid the price. Prices surged, savings evaporated, wages failed to keep up. It was a silent tax on the population. A method still used today. The only difference is that modern governments use central banks instead of imperial mints. In the Middle Ages, the trick evolved into something else: forced loans. Kings in England, France, and Spain regularly demanded money from wealthy merchants and guilds. This was not voluntary. Refusal meant fines, confiscation, sometimes worse. Repayment was promised, but often delayed, paid back in devalued currency, or never delivered at all. Wars were funded, palaces were built, and merchants had no real choice but to surrender their capital. The power of this trick was perception. Coercion was disguised as patriotism and duty, and it worked for centuries. By the 17th century, the system itself became the trick. When the Bank of England was created in 1694, it wasn't an act of charity. The government needed money to fight wars with France. Wealthy investors lent money to the state. In return, they received guaranteed interest payments, funded by taxes. But who paid those taxes? Ordinary people. The wealthy earned safe, predictable returns. The poor financed those returns through everyday consumption. It was a wealth transfer system dressed up as national finance, and that structure never disappeared. In the modern world, the same game is played with new tools: massive budget deficits, endless borrowing, government bonds. The public is told this debt funds infrastructure, jobs, and prosperity. But much of the money flows to defense contractors, large corporations, and financial bailouts. When the bill comes due, the pattern never changes. Taxes rise, currencies lose value, social benefits are reduced. The debt is taken in the name of the people, but the burden lands squarely on their shoulders. Think back to the 2008 financial crisis. Banks took extreme risks. The system collapsed. Who paid? Taxpayers. Who benefited? The same banks. Profits were privatized. Losses were socialized. Even retirement systems are part of this illusion. People pay into government programs for decades, trusting the money will be there when they need it. But in many cases, that money is never saved. It's spent immediately. All that remains is a promise. It will be paid later. As populations age, the system begins to strain, and the solution is always familiar. Later, retirement, lower benefits, or payouts quietly eroded by inflation. At every stage, the trick depends on perception. Inflation is called growth. Debt is framed as investment. Cuts are labeled reform. But the reality is always the same. Wealth moves from the bottom to the top. This system has survived for centuries because most people never study economic history. They don't understand how money works, and by the time they do, it's usually too late. Today the tricks are even more sophisticated. Quantitative easing, stealth taxation, regulations buried under complexity. Complexity itself becomes camouflage. In ancient Rome, debased coins were visible in your hand. Today the same process is hidden inside balance sheets and acronyms, but the trick hasn't changed. History tells us something very clearly. Financial tricks never disappear. They just change names. They just become harder to see. If you don't understand how money really works, one day you'll wake up and have no idea where your wealth went. This channel exists for that reason. Because history always gives the warning first. If you want to see those warnings before it's too late, this is where you should stay.